Hey guys, welcome back. So now with getting into more talk on the Joker War tie-ins, for this one we're going to take a deep dive into the untold story of Harley Quinn, starting from the moment that she met Punchline all the way up until shortly before she had found Batman in Joker War, which for the most part will take us through the narrative that we were given in Harley Quinn issue 75. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so starting off from Batman issue 92, to where at the time we had seen Selina bring Harley with her to the undertunnels of Gotham to meet the Underbroker in hopes of saving Bruce's fortune. And at the time it was here in this bank of Under America, if you will, when Harley had met Punchline for the first time. And prior to this point, we talked quite a bit about how Punchline feels about Harley, and because of how she despises her so much, Punchline has essentially taken that hatred and that energy and used it as fuel to solidify the actions of her opposing beliefs. But on the flip side, what we haven't done is talk about Harley, because in her case, we come to find out that she was actually intimidated by Punchline for both objective and subjective reasons. And all of this we find out within Harley Quinn issue 75, which gives us an epilogue style narrative called After the Laughter, which is a continuation of Batman issue 93, picking up immediately after Punchline had cut Harley's throat. And it's here where we find out Harley's true first impressions of Punchline, because even though initially Harley thought that Punchline was some sort of Harley Quinn knockoff, but that impression quickly changed like as soon as they started to fight. And one of the first things that Harley noticed is that Punchline was faster, which was a late observation which nearly costed Harley her life. But at this point where Punchline had the Joker's goons dump Harley into the sewage canal, and right after Punchline went after Selina, it's from here that we follow Harley instead, as she struggles with her inner thoughts and insecurities, which all revolve around the idea that maybe the Joker did find a better partner with Punchline. And so as we go adrift into the mind of Harley Quinn, keep in mind that this is the mind of Harley Quinn, and with that it's a bit abstract to say the least, but even with that being the case, Sam Humphries still finds a way to keep it grounded and relatable, because initially as we see Harley sinking to the bottom of this sewage canal, she's then met by the arrival of Quinny. In the description of Quinny that we get, she's like Harley's subconscious that appears to her in a physical form as a hallucination due to her massive blood loss. But even with this happening, Quinny is just a character representation of Harley's thoughts, which as we've known prior to this point, like the voices in her head, they range with a number of different personalities, which at any point can lead Harley in a number of different directions. But at this point, as Harley is close to death, Quinny appears as one form of the collective subconscious. And I gotta say, like with this happening here, I'm not gonna front. When I first seen Quinny, I thought that Harley had her own like Batmite or Mixia visiting her here from the 5th dimension. But as it turns out, that's not the case. But when Quinny shows up here, she starts spewing out all of Harley's thoughts, telling Harley like Punchline is younger than you, she's prettier than you, and you're just gonna die here and Punchline's gonna replace you. But before you die, let me flash your whole life before your eyes. And it's like, man, like that's just so cold-blooded. But at the same time with Quinny, it really feels like that ideal of like who's gonna be harder on you than yourself. But with doing this, Quinny shows Harley a flashback of a time she almost drowned as a little girl, to where she had to save herself because her brother didn't jump in, he just stood there and watched. And this memory gave Harley the strength to pull herself up from the sewage drain, but with doing so she immediately collapsed like right after. But during this moment that Harley had blacked out, which may have been like an hour or so, but during this time up on the street level, the Joker had already taken Bruce's money, and at this time the Joker just started soliciting new clowns from all over town, which like we had seen was the immediate plan of the Joker, along with releasing all the crazy press on Bruce Wayne. But at this point in time, it's still very early on, like we're not quite near the Joker mobiles flying through the street just yet, but instead it's like immediately after the Joker's announcement. But during the time that Harley's passed out, it's here that we find that her body's been found by a small group called the New Springbridge Soldiers. And with them finding Harley here, they had figured if they drag her body and take her to the Joker, that they would get exceptional recognition from finding Harley and personally delivering her themselves. But as far as the New Springbridge Soldiers, as far as I'm aware, like these guys aren't entirely new, because back in Robin Volume 2, I think it was, there was the Springbridge Soldiers who appeared a couple times in that series, back when Tim Drake was Robin, and he had the remote control Alfa Romeo Redbird, and there was also that time where we popped up in the ladies' room and he didn't say nothing until Sergeant Harper started washing her hands. Cause like she was like, dude, like how long you been there? And of course Drake was like, you know, I ain't seen nothing, I promise. But I guess it would have been worse if like his head popped up out the toilet like, baby. But even still, Timothy Drake did that and it was weird. But I'm guessing in this case that the new Spraying Soldiers, they're like a newer version of just the Spraying Soldiers, who had originally just got their name from being a gang that mainly hung around Spraying Bridge. But it's while they're dragging Harley off to go to the Joker, and they make their way all the way up to the surface, but when they get there, they stop and they begin to argue about how they're going to present her to the Joker. Because at this point, they really haven't decided whether it's going to be a ransom, to where they'll demand the Joker to pay up, or if they'll just hand her over as a gift and just hope that they find themselves in the Joker's good graces. But while they're arguing, Harley gets a glimpse of a guitar just sitting by a dumpster, and when she sees it, Quinn triggers a memory in order to boost Harley's adrenaline and catch these dudes off guard. And as far as the memory which Quinn had used to bring back for Harley this time around, it was from when she was in a teen band and they got stiff for a gig. So she beat like the booking agent with a guitar, and with remembering that, the new Spraying Soldiers, they caught that same energy. But once again, after this, she then blacks out again. But in this case, like with the last blackout, this one's like the most important, because it's here where Harley realizes like even when she was with the Joker, like even then she would have to save herself. And with this flashback taking us all the way back to like her original costume from Batman the Animated Series, it really feels like Sam Humphries is putting an emphasis on like this is the way that it's always been, which it really has. And I feel like Harley has been like the last person to figure that out. But prior to this point, she has come to that conclusion before, and instead what she realizes in this moment is not so much how much the Joker either cares or doesn't care about her, but rather it's her realizing to herself like how much grit she has shown in proven over the years, with having to save herself time after time after time, her entire life. And it really isn't until she realizes this where she pushes through her insecurities and her physical pain, and she takes the strings from that guitar and she sews her neck shut. But even with doing this, she looks in her reflection and she tells herself like Punchline may be hotter, she may be younger, but one thing she is not is tougher than Harley Quinn. But it's from there where After the Laughter then takes us into Batman issue 96, with us knowing that shortly after she had found Bruce, and after dragging him into hiding, it took him about 3 days to wake up. And from there we found out what had been going on throughout those 3 days when Harley had caught up Bruce on all the excitement that he had missed out on. But on top of this, with us getting the full story about Harley Quinn and her John Wick / Beatrix Kiddo recovery, I do gotta say like I think this will be the definitive line like drawn between Harley Quinn and Punchline. Because even though at the time of this video we still haven't gotten the full origin of Punchline, but regardless of that, one thing we do know, like for her, the Joker is like her Bible. She believes in the purest form of his ideals, and with that, regardless of how good of a fighter she is or how quick she is, like eventually there's gonna come a point where none of that matters. Because I believe in the case of Punchline, unlike Harley, Punchline will fall apart without the Joker. And I'm gonna call it right now, like at some point in time, we're gonna get a moment where he'll either leave her injured and stranded, or something will happen to the nature to where that part of Punchline will be tested. And even prior to this point, we kind of seen her faith in Joker tested to an extent, because in the moments to where she kind of believed that the Joker just wasn't truly being the most malicious version of the Joker that he could be, like in those brief moments we see how polarizing her response is, because when the Joker's nice, she goes into a dark place, but when he turns into the devil, like she lights up like the ice cream truck is coming. So take that and just add on top of it everything that she had bragged to Harley about, with how significant that Punchline believes that she is to the Joker, and just imagine her devastation in the event that her idol either truly digressed from what she believed him to be, or left her in a number of the situations that the Joker's left Harley in a number of times in the past. And I'm pretty sure later in November, when we get James Tynion one shot of her origin, like at that point we'll see how deeply her obsession goes. But even now, like before we see it, I'm going on a limb and say that I bet that for every advantage that Punchline has over Harley, like with her being faster and a better fighter, that I bet there's a psychological flip side to where she falls short somewhere else in areas where Harley's stronger. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the Patreons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can head to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and you can reach me either here or over on Discord, because before I go, I gotta say, man, that new Gotham Knights game they just dropped the trailer for today, Like, come on, man. Like, that game looks sick, and the hype is so serious right now. So squad up in the comments and hit me on Discord if you've seen that trailer. Discord link in the description below. But that'll do it for this one, guys, and I'll see you all on the next one. Alright, later.